Love the accountability by Mike. I love the accountability by the guys around him. We didn't play well enough around him. We didn't play well enough for him. We didn't give him the help that was required in order to go out there and win that football game from a special team standpoint or offensive standpoint. Played decent when it came to defense. After that first drive, after they went down, was able to score on that big time 4th and 3 where they got the rub route and able to hit that play. But, other than that, man, it's great to go watch the tape. It's great to go make those corrections, and it's great to find some real solutions for our guys to go play better.
Yeah, Coach, after that film review, what were some of the themes that were throughout that you all have to address on the practice field moving forward?
It's hard to say the practice field. I'd love to be able to come here and tell you that we didn't have a good practice last week. I would love to be able to say that, and that was the reason. But I don't think that was the reason. I thought we practiced really well. I thought we practiced hard. Obviously there's things that come out of this game and say, hey, let's do a couple of different things. Let's do some more competitive things. Let's get these guys going. Let's find the ways to make this environment a little more juicy for us. But those are some of the things you always want to do. Those are some of the things you do every single week. But really the real issues were within the game. It was really our energy. It was really our execution. It was really us going out, doing the things that we did in practice and taking that to the field and actually making it go. The first couple of weeks of the season, we got a chance to see examples of that all over the place, whether it was running the football in that Minnesota game or the first game versus Tampa, being able to go execute and get some gotta-have-it moments and make it really tight for us. We did not do that this week. This is one of those games where it's okay to have bad plays, but it's not okay to have bad days, and we had a bad day.
The equity rule with regards to the headsets,
I hate I even brought that up because I don't want to make that an issue. It happened, and I was explaining to somebody last night when they asked me what happened with the headsets. They went out, whatever the case may be, and it was a couple plays. And there was another situation in there where we just completely went away from what we talked about coming off a timeout and had to eat one. So one is on us, some is on the headsets. Those are things that we got to get cleaned up, and those are some of the things that we'll be able to do. We'll be able to get some of those things cleaned up with some of our procedures moving forward. And we'll be able to fix those things. I don't even want to talk about or make an excuse about the headsets going out. That's happened in this league a long time. It's happened before, and you got to find ways to do better.
Ryan, you just mentioned the delay game after the timeout. It seems that throughout the entire game, and there are a couple other points this season, there's been a problem getting the play in to the quarterback in a timely manner where they're getting out of the huddle under 10 seconds and they're not at the line. It feels like you're putting extra pressure on a young quarterback to be able to process a lot of things in a short amount of time. How do you get that fixed?
Yeah, Zeno, we're going to do a couple different things. First, I talk about the two different situations that happened. The first one was the noise in Minnesota. That was a big issue. That's tough. That was a tough environment, one of the toughest environments that you're going to play in. Yesterday was the headset tobacco, whatever we talked about with those type of things. But we'll move Zach down to the field to be able to get that little cleaner communication for him, to be able to get it to him if something does happen along those lines, to be able to be more visual and see the quarterback and be able to do some of those different things, to have him have a clear line of communication with Mike to be able to help him out a little bit more. And we definitely hold some responsibility in those things, and we'll go out and do those things. So we'll correct those things this week. We'll correct them throughout the process. It's how we practice. It's how we do walkthroughs. It's how we do everything else. So we'll get Zach closer.
Are there other ways that Zach can kind of help Mike maybe get in a better rhythm in some of these games? It just felt like he was a little bit off, and it almost felt like he started to get, I don't know, this is my sense, that he was kind of getting frustrated as the game went on, and there was just not really
he was off. He was off. I don't want to take away the fact that he did not play well, but there are definitely ways to get him going. He holds himself. He has high standards for himself. So yesterday he definitely got down on himself. Yesterday he was definitely not his normal, happy, competitive self. Got a little down on himself, got a little upset. And there's different ways that we can help him bring him back. And there's other people on our team that can bring him back. And, he has a C in his chest for a reason, because he's going to walk down the sideline and bring us back together for him. But that's a lot of stress on a young quarterback. And we can help him do some of those things. And without a doubt, we'll do those things moving forward to get him ready to go.
Raheem, some of those things you're talking about, unfortunately having experienced something like what Michael did yesterday. How much do you get the other guys to double down on, let's make sure we're running routes with a sense of urgency. Let's make sure we're not covering ourselves up. Let's make sure our depths are correct. Let's double down on our effort to help him do his job.
There's no doubt about it. You double down on that stuff with your wideouts. That's the group that Mike's going to lean on the most, right? And I think that group, for a couple of different reasons, they're highly accountable. You got some stand-up guys in that room, whether you're talking about Drake, you're talking about Mooney, you're talking about those guys that lead that room. They'll be able to go out and figure out what he needs, how he needs it, and when he needs it, and be able to give it to him. and we'll require those things to go on, and Mike will require those things to go on, and you further branch that communication to try to leap that thing ahead so you can have that kind of communication that you have with those veteran quarterbacks. Being a young quarterback, you don't want to make those excuses. But you want to have the ability to go out there and try to foster that relationship and get those guys going a little bit faster. Those things have been going around a little bit. You've seen Kyle Pitts get better. You've seen Kyle Pitts be able to foster that relationship. And now we need to do that across the board even a little bit more.
I want to stay with Zach for a second. You got a 20-game sample size of him as a play caller now from last year to this year. When you have the level of kind of dramatic swings, I don't even want to call it inconsistency. I think that's unfair because it varies from opponent to opponent.
Sure.
You have a great offensive game one week, and then you just zero the next. I mean, we saw it a couple times last year. You had the great game against Tampa Bay on the night game, and a week or two later, it doesn't show up. How do you diagnose the dramatic difference between the two of them? I don't want to put it all at the feet because it is a team effort of the offensive coordinator, but it's easy in our position to sit here and say, what is the OC doing? What's the game plan that
Sure.
looks so dramatically different?
The league is different. The league is tough. Every week's different. Every week, different game plan, and how you run how you run through your team. Like we've been running our team through the run game a bunch this year. Other than what we wanted to do in that Tampa game. That's why it was so much disappointment in what happened in the Tampa game. Came out, ran the offense exactly how we wanted to run it through the running backs, through our run game, doing the stuff that we wanted to do there. Came out this week, had it going that way, got out of hand pretty quickly, changed the whole dynamic of what's going to happen. So you get the up and down swings that you don't want. Right, we want to be able to find some consistency there. You want to be able to find all those things so you can find your way, find your rhythm, find your style of play. Right? And we know what our style of play is. We got to go out there and execute it. We did not execute it this week, and those things happen within the framework of a season. So last year, you had some consistency throughout some time. Then we had some inconsistencies throughout another. And we were able to fight back and get a little bit more when we put Mike in. But we got to find ways to find that thing more consistent, more rhythmic, in order to calm down our quarterback, calm down our team, calm down everything.
When you get into a game like that, 10-0 and a half, at what point in time when it starts to get out of hand, do you pivot from the game plan and say, scrap this, we got to go in a different direction?
It was at whenever 20-0 hit, when it became a 3-score game yesterday, to be honest with you. Went to that 3-score game, and you knew I'm not in the mood for dying slow. So, man, we got to be more aggressive. We got to go for some of these fourth downs. And the analytics better than anybody. That thing's saying go for it at 4th and 8, 4th and 9. And we're prepared to, no matter where you're at in the field. And we went for it a couple of times on 4th and manageables, which we could have had, that we did not get, that you want back. And you want to be able to have those things in order to give you a chance to get back in the game. And I think I was just asked, I don't even know, radio show, maybe it was Arch, but, how do you turn those tides when it's going that way? You make a couple of those fourth downs, you go down, you score, you get the ball back, and you stay that consistent rhythm throughout the course of the game, and you find your way back into it. And we were not able to do that yesterday.
Do you find, Raheem, I wondered at some point down there where you just take some shots down the field? I know you're getting a lot of umbrella coverage and they're trying to keep everything in front of them. You had a couple of routes, you had a couple of 3-1 sets where you had guys that were singled down
Sure.
the field. You kind of tell Mike, hey, you know what? Let's just go take some shots as opposed to reading it out.
He uncharacteristically missed them yesterday. We missed a couple of shots. We had a couple of people down the field and a couple of opportunities. Don't want to say that would have changed the game. I don't want to disrespect the Panthers, but it would have changed the game. We had an opportunity to make some changes right there, especially early, and some of the opportunities that we had. That's why is we talk about Mike, but we talk about the accountability from everybody else being in the right spot at all times. And we're a team that we're not going to run from that. We're going to run from that controversy. We're going to say what happened, what went wrong, and be able to go address it with each other. I got a bunch of young men on this football team that love that. They breathe that way. They want to be that way. Whether you're talking about Bijan, you're talking about Drake, you're talking about Pitch, you're talking about Mike, all these guys. Mooney, you can go on and on. That whole front line, after the first game, and a bunch of guys on defense as well. So we got a bunch of guys we can speak that very, very candidly to.
You guys take the shutout personally?
I'm sorry, say it again.
You take the shutout personally? Would it
You take
30-3 versus 30-0?
That's what I'm saying. I'm not in the mood to die slow, right? We probably could have punted a few times there and kept that thing to 17 and whatever, and lost it and felt better. But no, first, man, you got to go try to win. And that was the whole mindset, obviously you take any loss personal. And that was one of those moments where you take it personal and you got to find a way to go get your next win. You can't wait to get back on the practice field to get your next win.
You've said a few times now that Mike has already taken accountability. In what ways have you seen that?
Mike is a stand-up guy. Mike, right away after the game, immediately upon seeing him, with his guys, right away, taking accountability on what he needs to do better and how he can do it better. obviously he's going to go look at the tape. He's really hard on himself. He's really critical on himself. His coaches don't sugarcoat it. He doesn't sugarcoat it. He does it in the best ways possible that you want to have a young player do it. And watching him today with his team, because everybody's watching. You're the quarterback. Watching him today with his team, be able to handle those things is great.
Was there anything you felt like in watching the film after you were unprepared for that the Panthers did?
No, they're a team that we know very well, and it's hard to say that. They executed better than we executed. There's always going to be a play. There's always going to be the sneaky zero to hit you in the early of the game. That's not new, but unexpected at that moment. And you get the ball out. You want to get the ball out, get the completion, but we didn't. We did do it versus the Bucs. We didn't do it this game. So that would be the newest thing, I guess, in that moment. But we know that team very well. They know us very well, and they out-executed us and played us better.
Did you think that the mentality of the team was where it needed to be going into that game?
I did, man. That's what I'm talking about practice last week, right? Talking about practice last week. You're talking about the energy, the effort, the stuff that they brought to the field. It felt great in pregame. We went out and we did some of those things. They got out there and got the energy from the guys. Then we started the game, and then I can't tell a story. There was some life knocked out of you when we missed those field goals, and you got to find a way to bounce back. That's not an excuse. That's not a reason. That's not a reason to allow that to happen. But you got to find a way, and you got to dig deep, and you got to find a way to make somebody make a play, whether it's defensively, whether it's special teams, whether it's offense, to go make that play. And we could not do it, right? The knuckleball yesterday that kept hitting the ground, that took away from our return yards, a chance to spark a play there. We're not able to get to the quarterback, obviously, because they were able to control the ball and not really set up for a pass. A lot of quick passing game, a lot of runs in those pass situations, particularly where they got the ball. So you couldn't take advantage of it there. Couldn't take advantage of the deep shots because we're not quite there yesterday. It was just a bad day for us. It was all around. And you got to own it. You got to step up and you got to own that. You got to accept it. And you got to take full accountability for it.
You mentioned the field goals. We stick with Parker this week, or is there going to be more competition?
We got to bring competition in, and that's what we got to do. You have to do that until you get it right. You cannot allow that to be the reason to have this stuff happen, right? We went 5-5 the week before. We went 0-2 this week, and you got to bring competition, and that's something we're working diligently at.
Does the inconsistency and bigger picture, obviously, just not game to game, but even throughout your tenure here, some of this even from the fans' perspective predates before you were the head coach. The up and down, the inconsistent. The level of frustration. Does it get to you that you can see such a good product one week and such a different product another? It
was extremely frustrating yesterday, though. I would be an absolute liar to tell you that wasn't frustrating yesterday. So to see that happen at that level was extremely frustrating. To see what happened, we went through the losing streak last year, was extremely frustrating. So those are the two that I'll talk about. Those moments when you're capable of being better and you're capable of your team being better are extremely frustrating, for sure. And it's something that we want to go out and really, put a governor on.
Yeah, Coach, will you all have to prepare for Marcus and Jaden this week?
Very similar players. Obviously Jaden's very special with his ability and what he did last year. And obviously we know Marcus was the number 1 pick too, right? Number 2. Number 2 pick also. So we know what Marcus has. Marcus was in this building before. Got a lot of respect for Marcus and what he was able to do yesterday. And so they'll run their offense. It'll be very similar to what they do. Obviously one's younger, more dynamic, but one had that young, dynamic self about him as well. And you're talking about a guy that can go out and win football games for you, obviously. Got to prepare for them both.
How did you make out injury-wise yesterday? Anything?
Felt good. I don't really have anything off the top of my head that's like AJ type deal from last week. So I think we felt pretty good about it.
Darnell, is he, when you say he's at 100% at this point in time, obviously coming off that shoulder injury, it seemed like there were a couple throws where he either, doesn't make a catch that we're familiar with him making or.
100%. Obviously, he's 100% health-wise, but you are talking about a guy that missed the entirety of training camp. He was out there the first day. He was going for the rest of training camp, and he got back. When he got back, you knew it was going to be a moment there. You got to ramp him up, right? So, really, what he's going in these first 4 weeks of the season is almost like his training camp. So he's getting back right, and and Darnell won't ever make that excuse, right? But we got to get to the point that we got to go out there and play the right way. But no, he's not playing. We're not playing the brand of football we need to play with Mooney, and we're capable of so much more, without a doubt.
For Mike's first real test of adversity here, first real bad game he's played.
First one, yeah.
You curious to see how he responds?
I don't want to say curious because I know he's going to respond because being around him, I know how he is. I know what he is. I mean, he's a big-time competitor. So, like, I'm actually looking forward to it. Like, you never want to say you're happy it happened, but I can't wait to see the response. I'm actually more encouraged with Michael Penix's behavior today and his movement today for this franchise and for our team than ever. Like, I can't wait until Wednesday.
Confidence is high.
Confidence is very high with this man. You know, like, he's our guy, man. Like, and you're going to have these games, and, like, you don't want to have them a lot, but you're going to have them. You don't want to have them in that fashion when everything's spiraling around you, right? There's going to have that game sometimes, and somebody's going to pick you up, and you're going to be able to get out of that game, and you're going to be thankful to your other teammates that picked you up. So when this happens again, we got to be able to bounce around because it could. You know, got a quarterback in the back that has happened to, and, like, you know, those things can happen. But I got a lot of confidence that he's going to bounce back and ready to deal. I've seen him have a bad practice. You know, that's the first time we got to see him have a bad game.
You haven't had a receiver or tight end score receiving touchdown yet this year. Is there any frustration amongst that group? Do you have to kind of talk to them about kind of like getting through this period? And
I hate to say frustration, but their frustration comes from team goals, like winning, and the frustration came from yesterday not, you know, putting ourselves in position to win. We definitely want those touchdown passes. We definitely want to run it in. We definitely want touchdowns, period. We didn't play well in the red zone versus Minnesota, and we got to get better there. And yesterday, we didn't get many opportunities to put ourselves in position to play well enough to win that football game. So the frustration comes from the team goals from these guys. Like, they're team-oriented guys, man. They have been. They always will be. We got a bunch of really high-character people on our offense and defense special teams.
Quickly going back to Zach going down to the field, at what point did y'all make that decision upon review of the game, and what are some of the benefits of doing that?
I think it's just communication that Zach can, you know, kind of get across down on the field. You know, that's how we practice. That's how we do our walkthroughs. That's how we do every single thing on the field. Those two got a great relationship, you know, out in the practice field, out on the game day, out on everything. So, like getting them closer to the action, getting them closer to the environment, getting them closer to the play caller, getting them closer to all those guys, being able to get the reactions and get a feel for what the temperament is on the grass as well. I think all would be helpful, and that will happen. That happened today throughout our process.
Thanks, Al.
One more question.
Go ahead.
Bobby Wagner being a downhill force on the Washington defense, one of the great linebackers in the last decade.
We played them last year. You know, obviously Bobby and Luvu. You know, I think both of those guys, you know, being downhill forces on that defense, they both have played very well. They've both been extremely dominant at what they've been able to do, especially with their pass rush stuff. I think Bobby had 2 sacks yesterday. You know, obviously we know Bobby well. We know Luvu well. We know this defense well. And, like, there's stuff you got to be ready to deal with.
Thank you, Coach.
No problem.
Thanks, Raheem. Appreciate it.